Traditional rulers across Nigeria are pushing to be written back into the country's constitution. Their demand featured strongly at recent town halls and public hearings held by the National Assembly as part of the ongoing review of the 1999 constitution. Royal fathers say removing their formal roles over the years has weakened grassroots governance, dispute resolution and local intelligence gathering. They argue that giving them a defined place in law will strengthen security and preserve culture. Senate President Godswill Akpabio has told Monarchs the chamber is considering amendments that would leverage their institutions for security and grassroots intelligence. The House of Representatives says it is also looking for ways to strengthen their role in culture, security and conflict resolution. Key proposals under review include recognizing traditional rulers in the Constitution, giving state councils of chiefs statutory roles, and making their chairmen members of bodies like the National Council of State. The challenge will be defining their duties clearly, building in accountability and avoiding duplication with elected officers. And the monarch of Ososo Kingdom in Akoko-Edo local government area of Edo State, Bamidele Obaitan, joins us now for a chat about the constitutional role for traditional chiefs. Welcome to the show, Your Highness.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to be. It's a pleasure to be here.
Happy you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for sharing this huge platform with me.
Indeed. It's good to have you with us.
Thank you so much.
How relevant, you've seen the backdrop we just said, how relevant is the role of traditional rulers in Nigeria's current governance structure, you think?
Well, I think it's crucial that royal fathers be included into the Constitution with defined roles and responsibilities. I know I live among my people, I spent many years abroad, a lot of the Obas are educated, they know their people extremely well. And I think we definitely have a responsibility and a role to play, especially at the grassroots level. We see what is happening. We always talk about security matters being something that goes down into the communities. Someone in Abuja can't know what's going on in my community, but I live there amongst the people. So I know what the issues are. I know all the people, the good, the bad, and the ugly, And the bottom line is, to gather intelligence, you need someone at the grassroots level. And that's where I think that the traditional rulers become extremely important to the system.
Now let's look at the ongoing constitutional review, because we know that as we have it, the 1999 Constitution does not have any place for the role of, traditional rulers.
That's
but
right.
In what way do you think this limits the role and relevance of traditional rulers in Nigeria? And also, I'd like you to, talk about the fact that some people have said that this might further politicize, the role of traditional rulers. With what we've seen currently, some governors sitting and unsitting traditional rulers because of their political interest.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
No, you make a very good point. That's a very good point. The structure right now doesn't favor traditional rulers to be able to speak up. It takes a bold, traditional ruler to be able to speak to the ills within the society. You understand? And, one has to be tactful in the way you speak. And I think building them into the Constitution will allow traditional rulers to at least, if nothing else, counsel, advise the politicians, our leaders, our elected leaders who represent the people, in ways they could improve the lives of those at the grassroots level. A lot of times I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. For the sake of, the expectations from my people is that I'm the traditional ruler and I have power. When you try to explain to them that I don't have an army, I don't have police, I don't have control of the police, I don't have a law enforcement agency that I can beckon if there are issues. And so you feel like you're pretty much handcuffed, when there are disputes in the community, even when you try to preach the, peace amongst people, you find that you really don't have any way to enforce what is right, Traditional rulers are apolitical. I can tell you that for my kingdom, we ascend the throne through oracular divination. And then the way it's set up is then the governor will then appoint you, You get an appointment letter, even though you're picked by your people to be the Oba. So in that sense, if you're given an appointment letter, and like you said, the governor can depose you for anything you do to annoy the governor, then if your sense of being is tied to being on the throne, then you are silenced. You know, luckily, the way I feel, that my sense of who I am is not tied to being on the throne. With that said, I am apolitical. You know, I look at the political parties as a structure set up to get elected in the office, right? But as a traditional ruler, this is just my feeling, is that you should be on the side of the people. For me, if it's APC or PDP or Labour Party or any other party that's in power, my role is to support them to be successful. If they're successful, by default, my people get the benefits of that. So I feel like traditional rulers should always be on the side of the people. I hope that makes sense.
Indeed. And speaking diplomatically, if I might add as well.
Of course.
All right. Let's talk about specifics now. In terms of the Constitution, there's been some moves by your group to try and at least effect some kind of change there. So what really needs to change to encourage more empowerment for the traditional institution? At least you've also already talked about being now, can't do much when it comes to security issues and stuff like that. But what really needs to change that will give you, more leverage?
Well, I think there needs to be a partnership with elected leadership and traditional rulers, and they should work in like a parallel structure. We've heard the president pushing for state policing. I would go one step further and say there should, at the local level, there should also be policing, and that should also be tied into the traditional rulers, such that when something is going wrong, for example, communal clashes, it pains me when I see at the grassroots level, people get upset, they feel oppressed, whatever the case may be, and they take up arms to harm themselves, I should be able to put a phone call across and get some enforcement to bring peace as quickly as possible. Because for me, life is sacrosanct. And I believe that, not everything should be political. My mindset is that there is more that binds people than divides them. And although my kingdom of Asasa is just a microcosm of the greater Nigeria, when we are united, we're strong. When we are divided, we are weak. So I always like to toe the path of peace and unity. That's where, as a country, we would truly be strong. Things that separate us are not things that I focus on. I think as a people, I don't care what tribe you're from, we can agree that we want our children to have good education.
Indeed.
We want our people to have good health care. We want the most vulnerable in our society to be well taken care of. Because a society is judged by the way you treat your most vulnerable, correct? So even on Asasa, we have for many years, even before me, during my father's time, and with my mom having a very, very significant role, we've always done for the widows and the orphans. It's not something we broadcast because we believe all favor comes from God, right? We believe that the world God gave us is a world of abundance. It's human beings that have kind of, hijacked the system, creating problems where they don't need to be problems. As a country, I look at Nigeria as a very blessed country. I look at Nigerians worldwide. I worked in the US, and I'm a pharmacist by profession, and it didn't matter what sector of business you go into, health sector, IT, whatever, Nigerians are at the top of their game. But when you come back home to Nigeria, the country, there's a gap. The country doesn't, really denote how brilliant we are. we have a very, very high youth population. And one of the things I'm passionate about is empowering the youth. You understand? So I think we need to focus on the things that unite us and not allow ourselves to be divided. And I think we have to have a strong focus on truly empowering our youth, because none of us gets out of this journey alive. So if we don't set up the youth to be empowered and take over this country and run with it, then we are doing ourselves a disservice.
Well said, Your Majesty. Now, looking at all of the things you've said, especially since I hear a lot of challenges and bottlenecks from what you've said, especially when it comes to the role of traditional rulers.
Yes.
Do you think that a constitutional review is the solution? Or do you think that there are still some fundamental issues that need to be addressed? For instance, when you look at, balancing the cultural heritage with the modern way governance is being done today, it's not the old way anymore. And, we still have some of these rulers in their old age, 80s, 70s, do you think that there is more to be done other than just the constitutional review?
Oh, definitely. I mean, the constitutional review is necessary, but to your point, more needs to be done. I mean, we've been in the IT phase, now we're going into AI and machine learning, right? I believe at a certain age, you start to lose your sharpness, I believe it's time, at a certain point, you should start handing over to the next generation. You don't want to sit in office forever. For example, in the United States, retirement age is 62, 65, depending on if you take early retirement, And I think we need to move with the rest of the world, With the age of technology, things are moving fast, very quickly. Something that you have today becomes obsolete. And we can't always keep up. As you get older, the national progression is you start to slow down, Indeed. Right? So if you hold on to power when you're not at your optimum, then you're doing a disservice to your people, right? So in addition to the constitutional review, we as traditional rulers need to sit down and say, okay, are we preparing the next generation to take over in time? Are we willing to let go of power and, cede the power to the next generation? So there's a lot that needs to be done. But one thing I really believe in is that it is God that gives power. Nigerians as a whole, because when people complain about government all the time, I always say this, the government, the people we elect, they don't come from Mars. They come from the people.
Indeed.
So how do we behave? How do we treat ourselves? Do we value our lives? Sometimes I feel like we're too impatient, or you get a little money, a little power, and it goes to your head. I think people, as we say here on ground, people need to calm down.
Indeed. Now, let's take a look at the positives, away from the challenges. How successful have traditional rulers been in mediating between the people and, of course, the state governments? Edo, for example, we can take your kingdom,
Yes.
as a case study.
Yes. How successful?
Yes.
Well, looking at my kingdom, I always took the path of peace. And if you ask anyone, my father has always been about peace. A lot of times to the detriment of, you take insults, you take abuses, but, as a father figure, it comes with the territory. I never try to take anything personally, So from that standpoint, you just have to be, again, diplomatic, to use your word, and tactful in how you approach things. If you start taking everything as a personal assault on yourself, that's when things can go left. You understand? So it's very important to understand that you play a fatherly role, and you can look at it as your own child. A lot of times you correct your own child because you don't want the outside world to be, the entity that corrects them. And you correct with love. You understand? For example, in the United States, if you don't correct your child, especially our race, then the police can correct that child for you, and it won't end well most times. So the same way I look at my people, sometimes you have those that are very belligerent. They make you want to rip your own hair out, but the bottom line is they're still your child. So you correct, and then you hug, right? That's the way I look at things.
And on that very instructive note, we'd like to thank you, Monarch of Ososo Kingdom,
Yes.
Oba Bamidele Obaitan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.